Welcome to Atari Archive Episode 2, where we continue our chronology of the Atari VCS library shooting down planes and sinking ships in air-sea battle. While Atari was working on developing its first programmable machine, the video computer system, it had planned to make a machine that was capable of playing home ports of its arcade games Tank and Pong. That was never going to be the endpoint of the company's efforts, however, as Atari had a variety of other arcade games ready for home conversions. The company hired a programming crew in 1976 to begin the task of turning what was the cutting edge of arcade releases into something playable on a dramatically less capable system, as well as beginning the work of making home-exclusive games. Among those early hires was Larry Kaplan, who came on board in August of 1976 as the company's first VCS software designer, after impressing them by building his own Altair 8800 computer from a kit. Kaplan enjoyed taking advantage of the company's free arcade game room and was a fan of the 1975 arcade game Anti-Aircraft located there, deciding to make that one of his first projects for the system still in development. Anti-Aircraft is a fairly straightforward two-player game where two players fire anti-aircraft guns at horizontally passing planes, or UFOs in an early example of a video game Easter egg. Scoring is based off of how many aircraft the players hit, and whoever has the higher score at the end of the time limit is the victor. As a relatively recent arcade game and one suited to two players, it fit Atari's ideal for bringing its arcade hits home. Game development on the new system had its own hurdles. Kaplan explained that initially they programmed a teletype workstation connected to a timeshare computer in Oakland, sending their 6502 assembly instructions to the computer to have it converted to binary code that the VCS prototype could understand. The setup could only show one line of code at a time, and the programmers needed to use an oscilloscope and an analyzer to make sure that the display was properly synced for a television. In 1977, this arrangement was replaced with PDP-D development computers, featuring monitors and floppy disk drives, dramatically speeding up game creation. Since the 9 initial VCS games were all being programmed roughly in tandem, ideas and development techniques were passed around the programmers. Seeing all the wild game types developed for combat, Kaplan included a variety in air-sea battle. Aside from the default anti-aircraft game type, air-sea battle included a target range game where players shoot at rabbits, ducks, and faces. A submarine game where you fire torpedoes at ships, bombing, and ship-based games where you fire up or down at planes or boats, respectively, and plane versus ship modes where two players take aim at each other. Different game types changed how you could fire your guns. Anti-aircraft games had a stationary gun that could have its firing angle adjusted, while submarine games allowed you to move left and right, but fired straight up. The target range games gave you both options, allowing you to adjust your aim and move left and right. Others put you in a constantly moving ship or plane where players could adjust their speed, with shots keeping the same forward momentum as the craft that fired them. Some guided missile game types also allowed players to control their shots with the joystick after firing, allowing for particularly spectacular shots as your projectile weaves past obstacles. The difficulty switches were used to determine just how big shots would be. While most of these variations were silly, Kaplan said, they were all pretty easy to do in the system's hardware. He also adjusted some graphics in air-sea battle's target range mode to turn dogs into rabbits at Sears' request. Near the end of the game's development, Kaplan said he tried to implement an AI opponent to create a single-player mode, but due to space restrictions in the 2KB cartridge, all he could manage was having one gun fire continuously. Kaplan referred to that single-player mode as silly and not at all fun, and while those particular game types work in a pinch, they utterly fail to showcase the game's strengths. At its core, the bulk of air-sea battle is an indirect competition focused on hitting a target before your opponent can. And when your opponent can do little more than mindlessly fire into the sky, there's no element of stealing a point or bragging about narrowly hitting a plane or a ship before another no-value object gets in the way. It also means the direct match games where one player tries to hit the other as a plane or submarine are unavailable. It's a simple game even compared to combat, but it accomplishes what it sets out to do and remains one of the more interesting and fun VCS releases from 1977. While working on Air Sea Battle, Kaplan developed a method for moving player objects smoothly during a single frame of the picture despite not being part of the system's initial design specs, which eventually became a staple piece of coding for the rest of the system's life. Interestingly, after finishing Air Sea Battle, Kaplan also helped the busy Larry Wagner and Joe DeCure finish Combat, replacing a large playfield scoring system with the player score routine used in other games in development and doing some code cleanup. Air Sea Battle was advertised as one of VCS's launch releases in the early print ads from August 1977, but it for sure released along the Sears Telegames console as Target Fun in September. Video Magazine's Winter Buying Guide noted it had come out in that fall launch window alongside Combat, Starship, Video Olympics, and Street Racer. It was also highlighted by name in the first Atari VCS television commercial, which aired near Christmas time in 1977. It also had some legs on the market. Atari kept the game in circulation into at least 1988, alongside newly released technical showcases like Junior Pac-Man and Solaris. The game also received praise from the few game reviewers at the time. The first known written contemporary opinion of the game came in the summer 1979 Arcade Alley column in Video Magazine, written by Bill Kunkel and Arnie Katz. They praised the game as the ultimate one for people who enjoy blowing things up, particularly enjoying the options for guiding projectiles with the joystick after firing. Their only real complaint was that the computer's inability to take advantage of guided projectile game types, since all it does is fire continuously in one direction. Through the VCS's roughly 14 years on the commercial market, and countless years as a homebrew haven since, there isn't really anything quite like Air Sea Battle. Other launch games based around racing, or card games, outer space, tank warfare, would see variations on their themes over the years. But Air Sea Battle's brand of competitive shooting doesn't really have an heir apparent on the platform. But maybe that's okay. Kaplan struck gold in 2 kilobytes on his first VCS outing. There isn't much more to improve or embellish on what Air Sea Battle does. Next time, we hop back to 1972 game design and see just how many variations you can wring out of Pong.